Welcome to our virtual brunch with actual nerds. I'm so excited to see everybody's face. My name is Layton. I'll be your moderator today. Before we get started, I just wanted to go over a couple quick housekeeping notes as people are still joining us. I assume everybody's used Zoom by now. It's all the rage these days. Everyone will come in muted. We hope you guys want to share your camera with us so we can see your smiling faces. Even if you were not able to properly don brunch attire, that it will be all right. We have a couple ways to chat. This is an Ask Me Anything type of webinar, which means we did not plan actual content, so we're relying on you to help us out. We've got a chat going on that you can drop a question into. If you look at the bottom right of your screen, there's a reaction tab. You can raise your hand and we'll call on you. We have a virtual bouncer today. Her name is Jennifer Rasco Smith. If you act up, she will kick you out before you can even breathe. So
I'll have
please
to be nice.
yes, mind your P's and Q's. And with that, I will start the panel introductions. We all have the same last name, so we're going to default to first name alphabetically, which is Christina Rasco.
Hi guys, so great to see everybody's faces. Welcome to our brunch.
Jeff, you'll be up next.
Well, hi. Great to see everybody. Lots of good friends, lots of good old friends, some new friends, and I've got an omelet cooking in the kitchen, so I may go away at any minute.
Jill.
Already had my omelet. Good morning, everybody. Good to see you. Welcome.
All right, well, with that out of the way, let's get to the hard-hitting questions. Jennifer, would you like to put that first poll up, please? Since this is a brunch, we hope you guys are enjoying brunch style food and beverages. I personally have a Bloody Mary here. I see Stephen Foster has a nice warm cup of coffee. Oh yeah, Kathy, nice. Is that the one we emailed you? Great. Seriously though, we did receive some questions from you guys, so thank you that submitted questions. And overwhelmingly, the most was, what is our favorite type of virtual meeting software? Obviously, we're using Zoom today, but I'm going to throw that question to Jill first because she has been sitting on a lot of calls lately.
Well, see, and we're having so much fun, we can't even get the poll to work. So it's not available to us. I think everybody and their brother is being asked what their favorite or what's the best. And the answer, like everything in this industry, is it depends. Depends on what you're trying to accomplish and what your audience is and how big it is and what you need to do and how much budget you have and everything else. So I can't really say there's a favorite or there's a better one that's better than the other. There's a bunch of them out there. And I would say that we're willing to help you find the right one. How's that work? And
Jill, what are some of the ones that you've looked at and sort of close up and personal just in the last few weeks?
On24 has a lot going on right now. Zoom, of course. There's GoToWebinar's been around forever and is making a lot of their offering free right now. iExpo or InExpo, sorry. Events Air has an offering that they're announcing toward the end of the month that's going to be really interesting. So there's a lot going on.
So what are the factors that you would look for when choosing one versus the other?
Well, like I said, it's what you need to accomplish, what your goals are for your event and your meeting. How many attendees do you need to have? An exhibit hall for, sponsors and exhibitors? Is it just webinar you're delivering information? Does it need to be interactive? Do you want your attendees to be engaged and play games because they've got gamification built in? Truly, it depends on what you want to accomplish. Obviously, people aren't too willing to sit in a chair in front of a computer for 8 hours a day. So you need to look at how you want to break up your sessions from a live event where people get up and move from room to room. But there's a lot of considerations, like I say.
I'd also throw into, we like to talk over each other a lot. I would also say, to kind of tag on to what Jill is saying, and kind of it depends on your what you need out of your event. Some of it is also just how you're pulling it together. So I have clients that are utilizing, existing WebEx or Zoom accounts, but then we're using the event microsite that we developed when it was when it used to be an in-person meeting, and then we're taking that and using that registration and system to have an entire portal for to increase interactivity, to post on-demand content, as well as launch sessions once they come up. So there's other ways to take what you have and piece it together in just a different way. So we see a lot of that as well. Take it away, Hefe.
No, I was just going to say, one of the things that I've been looking at is for some of us, it's just like a question of scalability. I mean, so if we want to be able to do a meeting like this where we've got 50 or 100 of our closest friends, this works pretty well. But then what if we have to, what if we want to push the button and do a larger scale webinar with some different formatting? Well, something like Zoom, you can pretty quickly and easily just go, oh, I want to do a webinar, boom, and give them some more money. And, you can go up to, 10,000, and all the formatting is different. One of the first ones that we looked at was Hub, and one of the things that was interesting about Hub is that, they're there for the small things, but then if you want to do a full scale, multi-day meeting with breakouts and everything else that you would normally do in a face-to-face meeting, but just doing it virtually, they can do that. One of the things too is that they're all pretty sophisticated. So one of the things that we've been trying to do is learn them well enough so that we can go in and apply what we've learned about content management in general for registrations, mobile apps and all, and then apply it to these new tools. So all of you got some of that experience. So you're already a little bit up the ladder from some of your colleagues that might just be trying to figure this out from the ground floor.
Well, also Stephen mentioned in the chat that breakout rooms in Zoom, that's a pretty powerful feature that several of them offer, but we've played around with the one in Zoom where you can pre-schedule people, or they can choose to go into a particular session, if you will. So you could do breakout sessions that way.
Yeah, and Tracy Smith asked a pretty interesting question. How do you do a trade show online? Jill, you're actually at a booth later. Can you tell us what does that look like compared to, I mean, we have all been to real trade shows. What does a virtual trade show look like? How do you interact with the potential clients, and how do you plan it?
Well, in that particular instance, they have multiple breakout rooms set up. So as an exhibitor, we go into our booth, and attendees can request a meeting time with you, and you can accept or decline, or somebody else in the booth can take the meeting. So then you get one-on-one FaceTime with that person, but also in your room, you can have deliverables like presentations or slides that you want to be able to give to them. They can download on their phone or laptop or whatever device they're using. So that's one way. Another way that I've heard of, I haven't done yet, is even post-event, have scheduled times for your exhibitors, like say a 2-hour slot where the exhibitor is going to man their booth and attendees can go by and visit in that slot. So that's a good use.
We also have a couple questions rolling in about security. How do you prevent the dreaded Zoom bomb? And also, do you get what you pay for as far as security when you are paying for a paid app versus like a free Zoom account? Or the Zoom account, I know the features, well, I'm gonna let the panelists answer. Jeff?
Well, I mean, so Zoom bombing is sort of what it sounds like. Somebody is able to grab the link for the Zoom meeting, access it, and then anything from just shouting obscenities and nastiness to taking over the screen and showing porn, and they're sort of everything in between. On a lesser scale, my wife walking past the door from coming back for a walk is a Zoom bomb of its own. But anyway, there was so much so fast. I don't think anybody really. I don't think Zoom was really thinking about it. Maybe they were. Maybe they knew about it and just didn't do anything. But then when it hit all of the news outlets, they acted pretty quickly. So they changed the settings so that when you do a meeting, it defaults to like some of you that were here early were placed in a waiting room, so that way the organizers can see who's there and what they can do. Zoom also has a registration feature. You can turn registration on within Zoom and set it up so that as people register to attend, the moderator, if you will, can either accept or decline their participation. So you can turn that off and on. The question about sort of free versus others, I think that the Zoom free account is still going to have that level of security baked in now. It didn't before.
And it's not necessarily Zoom, it's just a public meeting, and Zoom had the unfortunate surge in popularity. Well, not unfortunate for them. I'm sure their stock is still pretty fortunate, but it was just in the news and it was Zoom bombing, but it could happen to any open meeting.
Well, and they came out with suggestions as well. Don't post your Zoom link to social media.
Right.
Social media, you can go and search zoom.us and find every open meeting there is. That was a pretty simple lesson that we learned pretty quick.
There's another feature built in here, by the way. So if you look down at the bottom, there's reactions. So you can, it doesn't have anything to do with security, just some other fun functions. Is you can go to reactions and give things a thumbs up, thank you, Joe, or a little clap. But then also in the, you've got the opportunity on the message side, on the participant side, to communicate with the panelists to speed it up, or I agree, or I don't, or to raise your hand. So if somebody has a question they'd like to speak, we can unmute you, or you can unmute yourself and participate too. So we don't want to completely dominate this when we've got so many friends on board here.
You do have to commit to being a nerd, though.
Yeah.
Well, Mary said something too about that you can lock your Zoom room. Once you've started, you can lock the room. And yeah, I haven't done that yet just because I know I'm always late.
One of the
Jill,
things that I
you can
really
lock
like.
it. Go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
please. No.
You can lock it, but the other thing you can do, if you can see my screen, there are, oh, look at that, run later. You can put a backdrop in behind yourself that's either branded or that is a place. Right now I have a picture of Fort Lauderdale behind me. If you can see that. So the one other thing you'll notice though is if a person has crazy hair, it ends up being weird. So if I do like this, you can see how it gets a little funky. So people may or may not be happy with that, but yeah, this is like a dropped-in backdrop. So if you had like a brand or something you wanted to drop behind, you could.
Yeah, Jennifer put our logo behind her. Jeff did yesterday, but it's gone today.
Right. Couple other things that people have mentioned. Corbin says that you can password protect. I believe one of the security features that came out directly after the Zoom bombing news wave was that that's default now. You have to change it to make it an open meeting. The other thing, like we're doing today, is people call moderators of meetings, it's a different functionality than a moderator of a panel. That's why we have a virtual bouncer to monitor people coming in and kick them out if it's not somebody we know. That is not me. I'm trying to pay attention to what you guys are saying and ask interesting questions. So we assign Jennifer to just monitor the waiting room, and if it's not somebody on the list, she can kick them out. If anybody is maybe putting on content or questions that are not what we're talking about, we can make sure they get addressed pretty quickly. Yeah, so anybody else on security?
That the virtual bouncer is probably going to be a new role in our lives of hybrid meetings, because I really think we're going to go into a state of, we'll get back to face-to-face, but I think there may be elements of virtual meetings going forward. And you do need that person that can keep an eye on the chat and the questions and make sure they get answered and make everybody feel included and heard. So I think it's a new role. I call them the virtual magician, actually. But
depends how tough you want to sound. All right, well, let's see. I think we've talked about Zoom.
Looks like we got the poll working.
Yeah, I think Jennifer accidentally left right when she was putting the poll up and came back.
Yeah.
Looks like Bloody Marys are the
Bloody Mary
top at 44%, but Mimosa is a close second.
That's my favorite, guys.
Before we move from Zoom, there were a couple questions about incorporating them with other vendors. Like how do you take your registration software and utilize it for a virtual meeting? How do you invite people in? The Zoom registration is pretty plain looking. So how do you make that attractive to your guests before they actually commit to? And then also, how do you incorporate like your second screen, your event app? And Christina, you haven't spoken in a while.
That's actually surprising. To kind of address the first topic, as you guys all know, there's tons of registration platforms in there, and they all kind of are rolling out their different variations of integrating the virtual, the Zooms or whatever on 24, whatever you're using into their systems. The broad answer is some are working on things that are a little more integrated, and the fact more okay, click a button and say connect this to a Zoom, but they all there are ways to pull all of that stuff into like a normal registration. Like you can absolutely take the registration platform that you may already be familiar with, that you're already using, and do pieces where you can pull in those Zoom links, or whatever virtual platform is being used, or WebEx. That's just kind of understanding that platform, or having someone who pull that information in. So it's scalable, and the different platforms are going to have different ease levels, I guess, and expertise kind of levels, but you absolutely can combine those things, because registration is so important, and it's we do need we do need more. We're going to need more than a simple like Zoom or WebEx registration. I mean, especially when we're talking about virtual meetings that are several days long, or continues throughout multiple days rather than just one call. So that's absolutely doable. Just look at your registration platform, and there's information about that. And of course, we can help you, we can help guide any of you, just kind of based on what you're already using, or what you may be using with us. So that's not a problem at all. And then, of course, you can take that and flow into that second screen. I think, like, you mentioned that concept a second ago.
Yeah. As somebody who's not a fan of gamification in real life, you need a way to keep people interested on a more than an hour. If you expect them to go to breakout rooms and stay in your event for more than like 30 minutes or an hour, I think it's more important than ever to engage, and that's a good way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the initial thought of, oh, we're not having a face-to-face meeting, oh, we don't need the event app, is, it's really the opposite. You really do need it to generate interest and community. The second screen concept is, alive and well, because one, you can keep an active community going. You launch that mobile app. I'm working with a client who changed their face-to-face meetings from just obviously week-long to virtual sessions that are going to span between June through August. And there's just going to have a couple of sessions every couple of weeks through several months. And, their initial thought was, oh, we don't need to use that mobile app, but they changed their mind, because they have an active community who looks forward to this conference every year, and they're already active mobile app users. So they're going to use the app to generate excitement. They're going to up the discussion boards and promote this discussion rooms, so that people can have discussions during a session, even submit questions. They're going to use it to check into to sessions, to post information, and have the ability to even launch it from the mobile app.
I think it ties in very nicely to Kathy's question. She asked, what about sponsorships? What are the opportunities on sponsorships for virtual meetings? The more ways you can engage the participant, the more sponsorship opportunities you can have. If they're looking at their computer screen and their phone, that's twice the opportunities.
I did have an idea of offering sponsor masks when we
logoed masks to go with your gimme bag. Actually, one of the things that we were talking about, one of the planners had sponsored swag sent pre-event to all the attendees. Another planner had sponsored like Starbucks coffee cards, gift cards going out before the event, so everybody could have coffee together rather than a coffee break. But then also in both the registration site and the mobile app, you have an opportunity for branding for your sponsors. So you can sell a lot of those same sponsorship opportunities. And I know one of our platforms, the face-to-face meeting people, so the attendees that are live can interface with the attendees that are virtual. So you can sign up when you register, you state whether you're virtual or live, but in the end, the virtual attendee can communicate and meet with the live attendee one-on-one in virtual rooms. So it's actually an expansion of what we're used to with a live meeting.
Okay, Anita just asked an interesting question that'll help us move into the next topic. She asked, explain more that what virtual and live meetings at the same time, also known as a hybrid meeting. And I think all of us believe that going forward, there's going to be a hybrid component to every meeting in the near future because travel restrictions aren't going to just disappear. People's comfort levels aren't going to just shoot up as soon as somebody says go. So how would you incorporate a hybrid meeting in a in-person meeting at the same time? Jeff, you haven't spoken in a while, which again surprises most people.
So I want to understand the question. So how do you a hybrid and a virtual together? What?
So I mean, basically going forward, we're gonna have to have some kind of virtual component to almost every meeting. At least until
right.
Yeah. So what's the best way to hybridize a meeting? Put a battery on it with your internal combustion engine?
So I think that's gonna start playing out as the different platforms adapt to sort of the new reality, as John Howe so frequently refers to it. Looking back, the whole concept of the virtual meeting, the On24s, the NXpos, they've been around for a long, long time, and they've been doing virtual trade shows in three-dimensional virtual reality and lots and lots of things for a long time. I mean, Corbin's worked with a ton of them, but just the thought of, okay, well, now that we're going to get together at the hotel and we're going to meet face to face, but half of us aren't going to be able to travel because of corporate restrictions or just a fear of getting together. So I think it's up to the planners and the producers of the conferences to think in terms of how do you make those things happen? How do you wed the virtual aspects of people being together with the real time? And that takes a lot of electronics. It takes production value. You have to sort of change your way of thinking from full on face-to-face or full on virtual, and so look for ways for people to get together, and whether that's lots of pop-up screens and social walls, using the mobile apps to even greater effectiveness, but it's going to be part of the planning process that we're going to be asked to do going forward, that just unless you were like a Microsoft or an Apple or something in the past, we wouldn't normally think of those things. So it's going to be challenging, and I think we're going to learn how to do it better together, and take advantage of the best of both worlds.
So if you're planning a, fall meeting right now, would you even think about not having a hybrid or some sort of virtual component? Or would you? Yeah.
I wouldn't. I'd be planning it. I mean, like right now, with some of our clients that do have October, November dates still in place and holding tightly to them. I was just on a call before I came on this one, and people were talking about, well, when we come out of this, there's going to be a scramble to place meetings, and the sales managers that we're working with, and the Joe Bedsouls out there are going to be going nuts trying to put these meetings into, just shoehorn them into available time slots if it opens up. But there's no guarantee that it will. So we've got October, November meetings that are holding tight to them, but to a client, those that do have meetings scheduled for late summer and into the fall are asking us about how to incorporate some virtual aspects of it. So I just don't see how you're going to be able to pull it off without some thought as to bringing people in remotely.
I think
Do I get to, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I think you're going to have some educational opportunities. I know we have several professional speakers on the line here, and when you think about it, speakers are used to being on a stage. You've got a hybrid meeting going. So how does your performance change to incorporate those people that are in the room live and those people that are dialing in from their cell phones? And especially, I don't know who it was, maybe it was Mary talking about international audiences. The hybrid meeting is going to be even more important for an international audience. So, I mean, maybe you have to have translators that you didn't used to have. I don't know. There's a lot of room for what ifs.
Yes, there certainly is a lot of room.
I was just going to put Corbin Ball on the spot and see if he wanted to speak to being a speaker in a virtual environment. Has that been happening for you, Corbin?
Thanks for the invitation. Thanks for holding this seminar, actually. And first of all, I think that, especially for international meetings, but for many meetings, I think even an October deadline is going to be optimistic. I mean, we really are going to see a lot of, due to corporate travel restrictions, due to just people's fear, until we get a vaccine, this is not going to be a full rebound. And so in terms of doing hybrid, I think that when meetings do reopen, that hybrids are going to need to be a significant component of it. I mean, we're going to see a huge growth as the events industry slowly comes back to this new normal. In terms of speaking to that as a speaker, I think it really depends. You certainly just can't, with a hybrid meeting, you certainly can't just put stick a camera in the back of the room and expect it. It's really a different animal, and you need to have production values. You need to have it, but from a speaker standpoint, if you do have that, if you have a camera team, they can, and specifically with a speaker view and a screen view, if they're using screens, it is it's not so different from that. There are also just a lot of interactivity tools that can bring that in, so you can incorporate the audience, the remote audience, in the same way that you could incorporate in terms of polling and questions and sentiment and those type of things. You can use those tools. I think that there's what is interesting about this time, I think, is we're going to see really a renaissance of invention around hybrid meetings, around virtual meetings, around how we meet in general. I think it's going to be a new normal, unlike the way it has been in the past.
Thank you, Corbin.
Yeah. Another one too is Stephen Foster. I mean, you just finished a virtual board retreat, right, for MPI, for the Carolinas chapter, I believe. How did that go, and what else you got going on?
Yeah, I did. And again, thank you, Team Rasco, for putting on this nerd brunch. Very cool idea. Yeah, the board retreat thing is interesting because whether it's MPI chapters or some of my corporate clients, they're even more now than before. They really need to get together and start doing some planning. I had one corporate client talk about, we need to sort of close out our year this year financially and figure out what we're going to do, maybe from a reserves or reinvestment piece, and that impacts what the incoming board will do, especially at the association level. So the challenge for me was we're not used to doing this in a culture where the tribe meets around the campfire, and the Rascos can speak to that. So it was, I think, what Corbin mentioned, and I'm sure what Rod would echo, is you've got to build in really targeted discussion time, no more than an hour, hour and a half. We did minimum 30-minute breaks. We did a extended lunch, and it wasn't collaborative because that's what they wanted to do, because so many people were home taking care of kids or they were doing work. But at the end of the day, the feedback was they actually felt like they got more work done than they normally would do when we get together in that face-to-face, because you kind of know you're going to sit together at dinner and flesh some of this stuff out, or you're going to get together afterwards. So certainly in the MPI landscape, I think almost every chapter board has gone to that. For me, I'm doing my first virtual give back team building event next week, which is going to be, I think, Corbin, to your point, we're trying to figure out some of the fun interactive piece. This is a client that had this on the books for a long, long time. They're here in Dallas. April is Autism Awareness Month, so we were going to do these Lego build kits that they use in autism treatment. And we had them, you know, they were already ordered, ready to go. And the initial thing was, let's obviously, we got to cancel. We can't bring all these people in. Last week, they came back and said, do you think we could do this virtually? And I thought, well, let me think about that for a little bit. So we talked through it. All of the kits have been shipped out individually to the 90 people all over the country. And we'll do a live virtual team building, and we're going to remote in the recipient from the local North Texas Autism Foundation at the end of the day. So super excited to see how that goes. That certainly stretches me as a speaker, used to being in the room and walking around, that interactive piece. But you know, I think this new normal, whatever it is to Jill's point, going to force us to incorporate both moving forward. Even after they give us the green light and we're into March of 2021 and everything's, you know, back to somewhat normal, I think the planners particularly, and I'd love to hear what the planners on the call have to say about that, they're going to want this component, because I think some people still won't travel, and some organizations will have some kind of travel restriction. So, you know, we're doing what we always do in this industry. We figure it out as we go along, and we jump over the next hoop and go on to the next, you know, next hurdle.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. I believe we have a question, a virtual hand raised from Kathy Nielsen.
Yeah, I have a group that's got a November meeting, and we're really actively looking at doing a virtual meeting. My concern is not only training the speakers, but training the attendees, because my group, as Jill knows, because she's shaking her head, they don't even know the App Store. So I'm really concerned that they're going to sign up, pay for this, and then not know what to do. And as much as we send them, we know they don't read. What's everybody's thoughts?
Anybody want to jump on that? Or I think you also brought up another really interesting question about finances. What is a virtual meeting worth compared to an in-person meeting? I don't know if there's an answer to that either.
That one's been my pet question too lately. I've heard, you know, everything from, you know, 40% to, you know, equal. So and I think it, again, as Jill started this whole thing, it depends. But Kathy, to the point about, you know, having people who are maybe uncomfortable with the technology, you know, how do you get them more so? And that's a toughie. You know, and I think education is key, and I think video is probably, you know, is the best you can get. I mean, if I'm going to talk your attendees off the ledge and into a virtual event, you know, then I'm going to want to be sending them emails with instructional videos, you know, going into it, which is a whole new, you know, production thing, you know, so it's just more work for you. But we know your group, obviously, and
just what you needed is more work, huh, Kathy?
You know, when you know, we were still in, you know, 15 years ago, still in the phase where we were moving people from, you know, paper registration to online registration. We used to say all the time, you know your audience, you know, and and some you don't even have to say anything. You don't have to have any instruction. You can go completely online. Some, we used to do mail-in, fax, online. I mean, all of it, just to be able to address all the needs of the different audiences. And I think we're going to have to start saying that a lot again. Know your audience and figure out just how much, you may have to, we may have to end up offering a lot more call center type things, or some way to, email or chat, just to get to the support of, how do you register for this? How do you attend an online session? Something I was thinking about earlier, because where I fall into the nerdiness really is being a registration nerd, which is maybe the saddest kind. But Jackie, I see you smiling. But also when you're thinking about particularly hybrids events, that really, the first place is registration. So the differences in charging, but also like, how are you communicating to those different audiences? You'll want them to identify from the get-go, if they're attending in person or hybrid, but then you can tailor that flow and that track all the way through. So, your confirmations may be different, your instructions are different. Those are all additional things to think through. It's and it's an important piece, because you'll want to know it, from the beginning.
So am I better off going with a company like Digitel that you just, bring up the screen, or going with Zoom where I don't have to do so much training, or I would have to do more training with Zoom?
No, I think your training level is going to be similar either way. Now, a Digitel is going to be a higher price tag as far as production goes.
Right.
But it's certainly more functional. We'll put it that. There's a lot more you can do with Digitel than you can do in a Zoom meeting. But with your particular audience, I don't know if they're going to play. Yeah, I don't know.
Karina mentions that speaker rehearsals are key. You could also do like a happy hour with your attendees before, to get them in a less formal, like kind of like this, to get them comfortable with the platform, and not necessarily have to be on time or miss something. I'm sorry, excuse me, waiter. One more. Thank you. So
Cute, Lit.
Yeah,
So
I was
I had
almost out of time for that bit, so I had to sneak it in.
I want to know where ours are, though.
Yeah. So Anita Weiler was talking about a PDF from Freeman for presenters, and so Freeman AV. So that may be up on their site. And just this morning, Casey Sanders from MPI posted on the community forum some resources, including some of the materials they use to train the speakers for they did that 12-hour GMID webinar on Tuesday. And so those resources are out there as well. But go to the experts, right?
Yeah. All right, we are gonna wrap up at around an hour today. Don't want to. One of the tips was not go too long, so that's what we're gonna try to do today. Does anyone have any questions on any other topics other than virtual meetings? We have been personally exploring a lot of small business loan opportunities we'd be happy to speak about. Hey, everybody's working from home now. What are some tips to, keep your kids out of the room while you're on a Zoom call?
They have dog crates. Although I gotta admit, my kid figured out how to get out of the dog crate, so what can you say?
I'm not sure I want to hear too much more of that story, Joel.
It's okay. He put himself in there.
Corbin asked about interactivity ideas to keep people engaged during the Zoom call. other than, you know, using the app as a second screen.
Polling,
Yeah,
Q&A,
polling.
calling on you.
Come across a couple of interesting ones that just for Zoom specifically, but one is to ask people. I mean, you have the polls. That's really a good one that's coming through. But you have, for example, you ask people, "How are you feeling today?" Or you want to get a poll, a quick one. You can just, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, you know, how are you feeling today? And everybody can put their hands up and do that. So it's just kind of a fun way of getting engaged, getting people engaged with that. Another one is to have note cards as a marker, and people could say, okay, what is one word that you're thinking of that sums this up? And you could put up, you know, put it up for that as well. So it's there are different ways that you can engage people in those ways.
I read something to do today too that I hadn't thought about before, is just remember that people are online. So you could do kind of a Google scavenger hunt or something, you know, some sort of like ask a question and have, you know, have somebody see who responds first or finds the answer first. But, you know, just a reminder that, you know, you can engage them in different ways than you probably would have sitting around like a meeting table. Oh, hey, bust out your computers. Just, you know, acknowledge that people are at a computer and they have it up anyway. So use it. I thought that was
that's funny. You want to talk about fun Zoom calls? My son is in kindergarten and they have a class Zoom call, and every time they have a scavenger hunt, and the teacher says, everybody go grab something orange, and they all scatter and run and find something orange and hold up. But you know, you can adapt those kind of engagement to adults too.
Yeah, actually, a seminar I was on yesterday, it was kind of a bunch of old timer geeks. Hey, Longhorn fans. And the lead couldn't remember an old product from, you know, back in the 80s. And somebody actually went and Googled it and sent a link via the chat. So everybody went and looked at it and saw it. And he got to talk about having used it. It was like back in the old days before the internet. But it was fun. There
was just one other idea that is mentioned before, but I found it to be really effective in Zoom calls is using the breakout rooms. It's a great way of getting people in smaller groups, and they can talk with each other, and it just breaks things up. And I think that's what you need to do is, you know, have a different variety of different ways that you can engage people. So that's one that I've used effectively as well.
Well, in Zoom as well, to other offerings, you know, have whiteboards and things that you can throw up and, you know, do kind of some of those same ideas, even more effectively, really, than being around a table or, you know, in a meeting room.
So thank you for that, Corbin. I'm going to try to wrap this up and ask the panel one final question about just life under quarantine. Are there any fun hobbies you guys have picked up since being stuck at home? Personally, I've learned to make beef jerky because I'm home all day and might as well do an activity that takes like 8 hours.
I haven't gotten my pre-event package, Leighton.
My kids keep eating it.
Yeah, right.
Well, I've been a jigsaw puzzle worker forever, but they're hard to come by right now. So a lot of people have picked that up as a hobby.
Yeah, and jigsaw exchanges.
I've enjoyed a lot of happy hour virtual meetings.
I picked up some happy hour virtual meetings too, which we're doing with some friends, but I also picked up Isabel, the Texan Chihuahua, the rescued princess of lapdogs.
Aww.
So there you go.
Nice. Oh wow!
I love seeing all the rescue dogs.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, Steven, once you learn to juggle, let me know. I've always wanted to do a double, you know, a partner juggle. I've never quite gotten that.
Do you still
Um,
practice, Leighton?
I don't. I had a dog that if I dropped it, she would immediately ruin my juggling ball, so I had to quit. Tracy's picking up Spanish lessons. That's a good use of time.
I don't know about
My
it.
son decided to learn the Rubik's Cube, believe it or not, for a throwback. My 19-year-old who's here doing home college from home now found an old Rubik's Cube I had from an event from a speed cuber that I had kept, and he messed it up, and I was like, hey, that's a prop from an event. And he's like, I'll figure it out. It took him a day to figure out how to solve the Rubik's Cube. So now he just keeps messing it up and solving it when he's bored.
My newest hobby is filling out SBA loans.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were gonna, go into your retirement career as a banker.
So they are coming through pretty quickly, guys. They're coming through pretty quickly. My husband put one through. It came through in less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, we've been
You're
pushing
bragging,
them.
Karina.
They were fast. They were really fast with it. So
if you go on SBA.gov today, it will say, sorry, there's no more applications being accepted. We're out of money.
Yep, it's all gone.
Yeah, so it is in Congress to try to come up with another about $250 million. So we're hopeful for that. But it's crazy out there.
I just wanted to address one of the questions I was received. We will be making this recording available. So we'll let you know how it's going to work. And also we wanted to do another quick poll for you.
Also, while you're filling out the poll, Anita did email us that that PDF on working with your speakers. So we'll make that available too. Thank you, Anita.
Thank you, Anita.
All right. Well, thank you to our panelists, and thank you even more to our participants that jumped in and added valuable information in addition. And of course, we love seeing all you guys' faces. It's been too long, so we hope to do these again